Good morning, New Hope. We're so glad that you were able to join us in this rainy day. We're glad that you came, made the drive, and it's a time for us to worship, a time for us to learn, it's a time for us to grow together. If this is the first time that you're visiting us, we're so glad that you came. We're so glad that you chose to come. If you're watching us online as well, wherever you are in this country, wherever you are in this world, we're glad that you are watching, and we hope that one day you can be here with us as well. It's the time that we sing some songs, and we'd like to invite you to stand with us as we sing loud, believing in what we're singing.
Sing with me. Better than you, Lord, there's nothing is better than you. Lord, there's nothing better. Oh, there's nothing better than you, Lord, there's nothing better than you, Lord, there's nothing is better than you. Turn mourning to dancing. You give beauty for ashes. Yes, you do, Lord. You turn shame into glory. You're the only one who can. You turn graves into gardens. You turn graves into gardens. You turn bones into armies. Yes, you do, Lord. You turn seas into highways. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. You're the only one who can. Sing a song with me. Let the King of my heart be the mountain where I run, the fountain I drink from. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the shadow where I hide, the ransom for my life. Oh, he is my song. Sing with me. You are good, good. Oh, 'cause you are good. You're good. Oh, if you believe, sing with me. You are good. You're good. Oh, 'cause you are good. You're good. Oh, let the King of my heart be the wind inside my sail, the anchor in the waves. Oh, he is my song. Let the King of my heart be the fire inside my veins, the echo of my days. Oh, he is my
Sing with me. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, moving in our midst. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, working in this place. I worship you. I worship you. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. That's right. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. You are here, touching every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, healing every heart. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, turning lives around. I worship you. I worship you. You are here, mending every heart. I worship you. I worship you. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. And that is who you are. That is who you are. And that is who you are. That is who you are. And that is who you are. 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 Even when I don't see it, you're working. And even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. And even when I don't see it, you're working. And even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. And even when I don't see it, you're working. And even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. And even when I don't see it, you're working. And even when I don't feel it, you're working. You never stop, you never stop working. You never stop, you never stop working. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. Oh, waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness. My God, that is who you are. And that is who you are. I'll see you do it again. You made a way where there was no way, and I believe I'll see you do it again. I'll see you do it again. Ooh. Waymaker, miracle worker, promise keeper, light in the darkness, my God, that is who you are.
Good morning, everyone. Let us come now and pray to our Father. I invite anyone who would like to come up here and kneel with me, or you are welcome to kneel wherever you are. And if you're watching online, feel welcome to comment below your praises or prayer requests. Dear Heavenly Father, we give you all of our praise. You have done so much for us, what nobody can do. We thank you that you call us not to achieve, but to rest, not to prove ourselves, but to embrace the identity that you have already given to us. Help us to have eyes to see ourselves the way that you see us. Lord, you have showed us the way when we can't see our own paths. At times, it seems like we could not make it. Yet, you carried us. Some of us are here today as living testimonies of your great works. We are standing in the spot where our gifts meet our story. Every single one of us has the ability to be a reflection of your love in this world. Lord, I just want to sit in that for a minute. I don't want to be moving so fast that I miss it. Because God, there is none like you. You are good. Every work you create is an original. Please let us see every good gift from above for the miracles that they are. Jesus, thank you that you have a plan for our lives. So now, Lord, I believe what your word says in Psalms 34. I prayed to the Lord, and he answered me. He freed me from all my fears. Those who look to him for help, he will be radiant with joy. No shadows of shame will darken their faces. In my desperation, I prayed, and the Lord listened. He saved me from all my troubles. For the angel of the Lord is a guard. He surrounds me and defends all who fear him. You are the firm foundation on which we stand. Thank you for building our character and for protecting our hearts. Let us never stop fighting to get to the other side where you are, Lord. I believe you will show up in our lives, in our every moments, from sadness through happiness. We feel your presence right now. And we feel that all things are possible in the name of Jesus. Amen.
This song is a theme song for this series on grief. If you haven't heard it before, learn it, pay attention to the lyrics, meditate on it, but allow the song to speak to you. don't wanna be afraid every time I face the waves. I don't wanna be afraid. I don't wanna be afraid. I don't wanna fear the storm just because I hear it roar. I don't wanna fear the storm. I don't wanna fear the storm. Peace, be still, say the word, and I will set my feet upon the sea till I'm dancing in the deep. Peace, be still, you are here, so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks. I'm not gonna be afraid, 'cause these waves are only waves. I'm not gonna be afraid. I'm not gonna be afraid. I'm not gonna fear the storm. You are greater than its roar. I'm not gonna fear the storm. No, I'm not gonna fear it all. Peace, be still, say the word, and I will set my feet upon the sea till I'm dancing in the deep. Peace, be still, you are here, so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks. Peace, peace over me. Let faith rise up, oh heart, believe. Let faith rise up in me. Let faith rise up, oh heart, believe. Let faith rise up in me. Let faith rise up, oh heart, believe. Let faith rise up in me. Let faith rise up, oh heart, believe. Let faith rise up in me. Peace, be still, say the word, and I will set my feet upon the sea till I'm dancing in the deep. Peace, be still, you are here, so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks. Peace over me. Till I'm dancing in the deep. Peace, be still, you are here, so it is well. Even when my eyes can't see, I will trust the voice that speaks.
Well, good morning. Welcome. I'm glad you've joined us on a really day, right? I know some of you like rain. I am not a big fan of rain. I spent a lot of years in the Pacific Northwest. It's a beautiful place. When the sun's out, it is the most gorgeous place on this planet. When the sun's out. So I always these days bring me back there really quickly to thing. But hey, I'm glad to be here in space inside with you. And if it's your first time here, welcome. We're glad you've joined us. In fact, you've picked a great time to join us because today we're starting a brand new message series. It's called Good Grief. Everybody say Good Grief. Good grief. Right, you may think of Charlie Brown, and that's kind of where that whole thing comes from. But we're not talking about sort of that just statement of, but kind of just the idea of grief and maybe trying to rethink it. And so first time with us, we're really glad you've joined us. And if you're online, you're one of our dots that we call, these people all over around the nation, around the world who join us. We're glad you've joined us again today. And let me see if I can kind of get us all on the same page together. Let me just say something that is true for all of us. Are you ready for it? Here it is. Now again, if it's your first time, you're thinking, are we in the right place, right? Or maybe you look at him and her and thinking, why'd you bring me here? Because I don't need somebody to tell me that, right? I mean, my mom may tell me that, or my dad may, say other people. But I just want you to hold on a second. Before you kind of go there, I want you to stop there. Because the reality is we are all losers. And what I mean by that is, think about the last 3 years. All of us have lost something. I mean, just think of this list, right? We've lost gatherings, right? There's been gatherings that would have happened and should have happened but didn't happen, right? There are graduations. I mean, I feel terrible for kids, right? Especially, seniors graduating high school or a senior from college and finally making that achievement, finally that chance to walk up there and go, woo, and kind of put it in your teachers' faces because they didn't think you were going to pass and kind of show your family that you did it, and that didn't happen, right? Whether it's 8th grade graduations, that transition, maybe it's the kindergarten graduation, and we may think it's not a big deal, but it's a big deal. Because for them, they lost that. There's the celebrations that we've missed, right? There's the memories that we've missed. There's the mornings that we missed. There was somebody within our church community who, through this whole COVID pandemic thing, if I remember the number right, it was like 18 members of their family passed away. And because it was right sort of in the heart of it, there's no way to go be part of that mourning. And I was thinking, if 18 of my family members passed away, I wouldn't have any family, right? I'd be working on like people I didn't know because I don't have that many. But at the mornings, and I know for some of us that had to wait till afterwards, and it hangs on. There's the relationships that we lost, right? Or that we lost out on or lost time with. There's the connections that we didn't get. There's the loved ones that we've lost in lots of different ways. There's time. That thing none of us can get back. That is gone forever. And we've even lost a little bit of life. Or maybe a lot of life. Dreams that just vanished. Because they didn't happen when they were supposed to happen, and now it doesn't look like they're going to happen because not only do we have a pandemic, we got inflation, we have more wars that sort of draw our attention, and so we are all losers, right? And I just want you to say it that way. I'm a loser. Just say I'm a loser. Yeah, some of you are not saying it with much conviction. Because it's not a trick question. This is not a trick. I just need us to say that because I'm convinced that this pandemic has done more to us than we imagine. I think we're all under, whether it's a level of depression or maybe a better term is a level of grief, because we've all lost. I'm a loser. And to be able to say that and to embrace that is really what this next few weeks is all about. And here's something I know, so kind of just to put it out there because we all know this. Nobody wants to grieve, right? But here's the reality. Everybody has to. And it's that thing that's why we're going to stop and take a few weeks and sort of build one week on another, is because while none of us wants to do it, we all need to figure out some way to do it. And here's a what if question. We're going to start this week with a big what if question. What if grief isn't bad? Because we all kind of think it's bad, right? But what if grief really isn't bad? But what if how we deal with it is what's bad? In fact, if grief isn't bad, then what if grief is good? And I could say good for us, and we'd be like, it sounds like that medicine my mom used to give me, right? This is good for you, and you're like, no, it can't be, because anything that tastes that bad can't be good for us, right? But what if grief is good, even though it doesn't feel like it, even though we don't believe it? And that's what I'm going to try to convince not just you, but myself over these next few weeks. Grief really isn't bad. In fact, it's something good. But what's bad about it is how we typically deal with it, because we all have picked up ways to deal with it, and most of them aren't the healthiest ways to deal with them. So before we get into today's message, that's kind of a flyby, an overview of this whole thing, I want to invite you to bow your heads and pray with me one more time together, right? Lord, I thank you just for the time that's been before now in this space. The chance to sing and to think about the words, and even to be able to express things that are sometimes hard for us to express. To sing with hope that the words we sing will be true for us. The chance to pray with someone as they pray for us, and to remind us of important truths. And even just now, I pray for your presence. Because all of us recognize that our struggle with grief is more than just logic and knowledge. It's really an emotional thing. And the only way we can get that sort of reworked and refocused is for you to do something in us that we cannot do for ourselves. And some of that will come through information, and some of that might come through logic, but a lot of that will come through your nudging and moving. And so if you can just move us, even just to get us leaning in the direction towards rethinking grief and how we think about it isn't not only the best way, but the most honest way, then today and the weeks to follow will be a time well spent. And we'll thank you for that, because if we can figure out how to turn our grief into something better than it normally is, that would be a gift that would keep on giving for the rest of our lives. In your name, amen. As a society, I think we have certain beliefs, certain mottos, certain statements that we all sort of rally around, that gets out there and we hear it enough, we begin to believe it enough. And here's one of those statements, and it's simply this, right? It's bad to feel bad, because none of us like to feel bad, and so we kind of buy in. Yeah, it's bad to feel bad, so we'll do anything that we can to keep from feeling bad, right? But let me ask you a deep theological question. Today you get to be a theologian, a deep theological question based on that common belief that we have as a society. You ready for the question?
Yeah.
Right? Why is it bad to feel bad? See, we have raised up the good emotions, the smiles, the happiness, the joy, which are all great. Don't get me wrong, right? But we've downplayed and pushed down those emotions, those feelings that don't feel so good. And we don't want to feel bad, and so we want to do anything but that. But the question really has to be, and it's a deep theological question. Because even if you're not a religious person, it still is a theological question for you, even though you say, I don't really believe in God or not really sure about God, because it is a question about why that is. You see, as a Christian, as a follower of Jesus, I believe that God created all these things, that he created us as people, that in fact, he designed us after how he lives life. This idea in the very first start of the thing we call the Bible, where God says, let us make man in our image, right? Let us make people, humans, in our image. And part of that image is the idea of emotions. Emotions make us feel, which is great, and which stinks, right? But here's the thing I want us to think about just today. And what if grief is really normal? And not only normal, what if it's needed? What if it's designed as emotion that is there to help us more than it is to hurt us, even though it feels like it's hurting us more, it is help us. And just a quick quote from one of my favorite authors. You've been around, you know, Anne Lamott. I love her. She's kind of out there, different, crazy, which is what I love about her. She's raw and honest, and I don't always agree with everything she says, but she has a way with words, and sometimes having somebody with a way with the words helps us kind of put our words in a certain way. So here's what she talks about grief. She says, listen, only grieving can heal grief. I'm going to let that pause because I think that's really key. Only grieving can help grief. Because I don't know about you, I kind of think, no, only not grieving, right? Stay away from that because I don't want to feel that go. But she's saying, no, you got to have this to get that, right? Only grieving can heal grief. The passage of time will lessen the acuteness, but time alone, without the direct experience of grief, will not heal it. The point is that the only way to get through it somehow is actually to experience it somehow. And the truth of the matter is, and you know this as well as I do, that how we handle loss matters. And we've all experienced loss. Typically we think about grief just sort of like when somebody passes away, but as we started with, we're all losers. We have all these things that we have felt loss from, and losses, we grieve those losses in various different ways. Sometimes it's like, it wasn't that big of a thing. And other times it's like, no, it was, but I don't really want to talk about it. But how we handle loss matters, and our failure to grieve impacts us more than we want to acknowledge. That was actually really good. That's maybe one of the best things today. So, see, because the reality is we tend to minimize our loss. The vast majority. It's not all of us, but some of us, you know, we remember. In fact, we say things like this. We say, it's just, right? It's just a kindergarten graduation, right? Not that big a deal. It's just a recital. You'll have more of them, right? It's just, you know, and we go on. It's just, we kind of just, we shrink it down so it isn't that big. It's just this, right? Or we tell others, you know, it doesn't matter, right? Doesn't matter. In fact, we tell ourselves that doesn't matter. The problem is, it does. Which is why sometimes we say it doesn't matter, right? Well, let's be honest. Sometimes we lie because we don't want to deal with it, right? So we lie to ourselves and seeing if we lie long enough, we'll believe it, even though it kind of keeps hanging around. I mean, just go through the list. We avoid grief. I mean, have you ever been around somebody who's in a one of those stages of grief that is just like overwhelming, and you're like, I just need to be out of the space, right? Because I don't want to say anything wrong. I don't want to do anything wrong. And I know if I stay here long enough, I'm going to say or do something wrong, right? Because I don't know what to do. And so I want to avoid it. We avoid it. We suppress it, right? We go through that list. No, not a big deal. It's only this, only that. We medicate it. And we medicate it in lots of different ways, right? Some of us work harder, right, to stay busy. As long as I stay busy, I don't have any time to think, which is actually, I don't have to think about it then, right? Or we grab something, we drink something, we smoke something, we eat something. We have all these ways to medicate it. And not only that, we're afraid of it. Because grief is so raw and so uncontrollable and so unmanageable and so, right? I mean, if you go read what psychologists and counselors write about grief. There used to be 5 stages of grief. Now they say there's like 7 or 8. Nobody really kind of knows. And it's not we see stages and we think first step, second step, third, you work through the steps, right? But it's not that kind of thing. People go in and out of different things. They go back around things. And it's things that typically happen in people's lives as they grieve, but it's not sort of a process. And we love processes, right? I want to know steps because I know if there's 5 steps and I'm experiencing number 3, that means I'm getting closer to number 5, right? But grief isn't that way. And maybe the best thing I can say to at least somebody in this space or somebody watching online today is simply this. In fact, not only is it okay to grieve, we need to grieve. You need to grieve, I need to grieve. Because I think Anne Lamott was on to something when she says the only way to find healing in grief is to actually go through the experience of grieving. As hard as that is, as tough as that is. In fact, psychologists have this great statement about the whole idea of grieving and trying to avoid it. It's simply this. They say, better out than in. Better to get it out than to keep it in, because the reality is what stays in doesn't. And our grief will pop up. And maybe you experience this, right? Maybe you're the kind of you just put your head down, we're going to get through this. You stay busy, you just keep your mind going because you don't have to think about it. And you get a few months in and you're thinking, okay, I'm doing pretty good. And then all of a sudden a memory triggers and out comes some stuff. And it's like stuff you didn't expect, stuff you didn't want coming out. You said something, you did something. It's like, where did that come from? It came from in that you hadn't gotten out. And so it's trying to find a way out. So today, we're going to take a quick overview of a part of the Bible that is what we did earlier today, and it's about a bunch of songs. In fact, this is what's called Psalms, right? If you're familiar with the Bible, there's a whole section of these things called Psalms, right? Sometimes we call them prayers. In fact, even in the little description before them, it'll say this is a psalm, a song from David or a song from somebody else. And here's some musical notes, which is kind of weird because there aren't any notes there, but it's something. And sometimes they'll say a prayer of David or a prayer of somebody in this, but they're really songs. They're lyrics to songs that we don't have the music for. And what I love about this whole section is, think about how valuable songs are in your life. How many of you have maybe a favorite song or like a song that's like in your top 3 or 4? Anybody? How many of you have like heartbreak songs? I'm not asking if you're a country western fan, just a heartbreak song, right? Sad songs, No Tears in Heaven, Angel, right? There's so many, right? I mean, these songs that are just like you put them on because it helps you feel, right? And that's sort of what the Psalms is about. And I think we need to kind of remember, these are lyrics to songs that people wrote. And the great thing about them, songs help us get our emotions out, right? I mean, isn't it something that sometimes, you just want to put on that song and just cry, Now, guys, you don't want to have anybody around when you do that, but, want to be driving like about 55 miles an hour, But they help us get those emotions. Not only that, songs help us process what is beyond our processing. Which is why we like some songs, right? It's like, oh man, that song is so great because it just says what I don't know how to say, but it just kind of puts it in words, right? And so we're going to do kind of a quick flyby over a few of these songs, little parts of the lyrics. We're not going the whole lyrics because a lot of these things are really long. And unlike our songs, they don't have like a section and then the chorus and then back to a section and then the chorus. They're like all verses, right? And they go on. And I don't want you to get too depressed, too much in grief today. But I want you to get just enough taste to know that these songs are very much like a lot of our songs. They're like your favorite, breakup song or sad song or heartbroken song. That song you just have to kind of have a good cry. So here they are. You ready for this? No, you aren't, because I'm not ready for it either. Because it may get a little depressing. I apologize for that. No, I don't. Because again, I want us to sort of experience some grief. Because again, I believe it's why we have this gift of grief. So here we go. Psalm 6. These are all 3 are songs from David, who apparently was this great-looking guy who played a guitar, and all the ladies were like, oh, oh, he's a warrior, he's a strong guy, all this stuff, right? Remember he kind of becomes king after being told he's going to become king, comes out, everybody loves him, great, it's all going good. Then he has this one night when, he doesn't go out to battle, he stays back because he's getting a little older, let the other guys do it, sees a woman, decides he likes the woman, brings her over, they have a moment together, or maybe a few moments together. Then he goes, oops, because she gets pregnant, so he gets the husband back from the front line so that maybe he'll have a moment with his wife, and it'll be kind of covered over. The guy's too good of a guy, doesn't do it. You got to go read the story. Anyways, the whole story goes on. He ends up getting the guy killed, put him in the front line, back off, let him die. And then David has to experience it because at some point it comes out, all the stuff that David had done. And it's a public embarrassment, a disgrace. David, the king of all kings is now not so perfect any longer. In fact, the child that is born from this few moments ends up dying. It's the idea that it's sort of as a result of sort of punishment, which is sort of a weird thing that we don't quite understand. And there's a whole section that David has this about grief there. We might look at it. But we don't know which of these songs is based on that, but you can sort of hear that story come out in some of this. Because if you've ever really messed up where other people know you've messed up, and it's been embarrassing, and it's been shameful, it's been all those kinds of things, you can hear it as we go through. And again, I don't know which one of these might go, because it doesn't say, this is the song David wrote after this. It just sort of has these pieces. But here it is. Lord, don't rebuke, that is, reprove me when you're angry. Don't punish, that is, discipline me when you are enraged. Which you may be thinking, well, I don't see God as doing that, but that was how they felt, and even sometimes, let's be honest, how we feel, right? Why is this happening to me, God? Did I mess up? Did I do something wrong that you're causing? So David says, he sings this, Lord, don't rebuke me, right? And then, Lord, have mercy on me, that is, be gracious to me because I am weak. I'm in anguish, I'm faint, I'm all these things. Heal me, Lord, because my bones ache. Starting to sound a little bit like a country western song now. I'm in agony. That is, I ache. And then he asks the question we all ask, how long will it be, right? How long will it be? Sorry. But, I want you to remember this in songs, right? They're writing lyrics to try to capture this whole moment. Lord, return and save me. Rescue me, deliver me because of your kindness, your loyalty, your covenant love. I love this. Dead people don't remember you. Those in the grave don't praise you. Oh, by the way, God, don't forget that if I'm dead and gone, I can't do anything, right? I'm at the end of my rope and my rope's getting short, kind of thing. I'm tired that it's weary of crying to you. I'm weary because of my moaning, right? Every night I flood my pillow with tears. My bed is soaked from crying. That's the kind of song you just put on and cry over, isn't it? My eyes are weak because of my grief. They are weak from crying about my enemies. And it literally goes on for I think it's about 17 more verses, which I'm not going to go through because they kind of get sad. And some of them will turn it around and say, oh, but God comes through and answers. But I want you to understand that these are songs that he wrote to try to kind of capture the feelings that he had, and I think a lot of us have at times. Where are you, God? And why is this happening to me? And I am just so tired of crying. Another one, Psalms 31. Lord, have mercy. Be gracious because I am in misery. I'm in distress. My eyes are weak from so much crying, as is my soul and my body from grief. My life is ending in sadness, and my years are spent with sighs. My strength stumbles in my misery, and my bones are getting weaker. Because of all my troubles, my enemies scorn me, and even my neighbors look down on me. When my friends see me in public, they're afraid and they run. I love this last line. I am like a piece of broken pot. Now that one could still be a part of a song, right? But you get this feel again of as he's just sort of crying out. And the last one we're going to do 3, and it's going to be like, oh, Mike, why are we doing so many? Because I want you to get the feel that these songs were written to try to capture the same reason our songs are, to capture something in us, right? I mean, some songs are written for commercial success, but a lot of them are written from people's experiences, and they want to get those emotions out. And I love this last one, how much it models and it follows the pattern we even have today when he says, Lord, listen to my prayer. Let my cry for help come to you. Do not hide your presence, that is your face, from me in my time of trouble. Pay attention. Pay attention, that is, extend your ear to me. When I cry for help, answer me quickly. My life is passing away, vanishing like smoke, and the bones are burned up with fire. Doesn't that sound like a song that you would listen to? My heart is like grass that has been cut and dried. I keep thinking this is a country western. I don't know. I may have an accent. In my head, I'm hearing a country song, right? It might be kind of a blues song because it doesn't have sort of a rhythm and beat, but my heart is like grass that has been cut and dried, right? I mean, what a great craft of words to capture that feeling of like grass that was great before, but now it's lying there just to wither and die. I forget to eat my food, which is not a great line, by the way, but probably it's a true statement, right? It's true. If you've ever been grieving, it's like, I'm not really hungry. People say you're supposed to eat because you need to eat. You haven't eaten. It's like, I'm not really hungry. Because of my grief, the sounds of my groans, my skin hangs on my bones. I am like a desert owl, like an owl living among the wastelands. Which again is one of those lyrics that some of the songs you've listened to that you think, I'm not sure exactly what that means. But it kind of captures something about kind of living out in the wastelands. This next line is just, I lie awake. And then the last one before he goes on for a long time, I love this. I am like a lonely bird on a roof. Which again sounds like something you'd hear in a song, doesn't it? Yeah, you've heard songs, right? Where you're reading a lyric and you think, where did that come from, right? Kind of doesn't kind of fit. I mean, what is a lonely bird on a roof? What is it capturing, right? But here's the thing, all of these songs are remind us of. And that is that, now you may be thinking to yourself, Mike, where do you come up from this stuff at, right? But let's be honest, this is pretty simple. Grieving makes us uncomfortable because it is uncomfortable, right? But it's true. And it's why we just don't want to deal with grief. Because it does make us feel so uncomfortable. That's why songs are such a great way to sort of get it out, because in the moment we're kind of, going with the music and getting to the thing, and we're not really thinking as much. We're a little more open to sort of expressing it because it's just a song, even though it's really expressing our feelings. So another what-if question. What if grief isn't something to get over? Or even something to get through? Because let's be honest, that's what we think when we're kind of facing some grief, right? I want to get over this. I want to get through this as quick as possible because I don't like being in this space. But what if it isn't either of those things? It isn't something to get over or get through. What if it's a normal response to things that don't seem normal? I want to put up a picture of somebody that some of you may be familiar with. Anybody familiar with this lady? Anybody recognize her? She was on America's Got Talent. I'm not a big fan of that, but occasionally I'm, watching something and I run across occasionally I'll go on like YouTube and see who the top people from this last year were or something like that. Sometimes there's some great stories that go along with this. This lady's name is Jane Mark-Zawiski. And hers was a pretty heartbreaking story. She had battled cancer for like 5 years. It had gone into remission. She had gone on this show, which is a talent show, to kind of take a shot at this thing, because it seemed like kind of life had given her a little hope now that she was cancer-free. She goes on this show, has this amazing song, You Ought to Go. I think she's called the Nightbird, right? She has this great voice, and she goes on. She gets through the first round. I think she gets to the next round. She gets to a few rounds, and then all of a sudden, she stops, and she doesn't get not put through. The cancer comes back, and she then begins to deal with the reality of all of that. And in fact, I'm going to read you something that she wrote just a few months ago. And I love it because it's so honest and it's so true about grief. And I want us to hear it because sometimes I think we're afraid of grief, especially those of us who consider ourselves followers of Jesus, those of us that are religious. We kind of think, we can't say some things even though we're feeling those things. Even though logically, if we're feeling those things and we're thinking those things, God probably already knows those things. But I just want you to listen to her words and watch the complexity of the grief that she was facing of trying to make sense out of this cancer diagnosis that she fights for 5 years. It goes into remission. And oh, by the way, I think the guy she was married to says, I'm no longer in love with you. It's all this kind of terrible stuff. Seems like things are getting hopeful. She's maybe going to have a chance to get her, this music, this voice out. And then the cancer comes back. And I just think it's important to know that it's okay to have all these feelings. So here it is. I am God's downstairs neighbor, banging on the ceiling with a broomstick. I show up at his door every day, sometimes with songs, sometimes with curses, sometimes apologies, gifts, questions, demands. Sometimes I use my key under the mat to let myself in. Other times, I sulk outside until he opens the door to me himself. I have called him a cheat and a liar, and I meant it. I have told him that I wanted to die, and I meant it. Tears have become the only prayer I know. Prayers roll over my nostrils and drip down my forearms. They fall to the ground as I reach for him. These are the prayers I repeat night and day, sunrise, sunset. Call me bitter if you want to. That's fair. Count me among the angry, the cynical, the offended, the hardened, but count me also among the friends of God. For I have seen him in rare form. I have felt his exhale. I have laid in his shadow. I have squinted to read the message he wrote for me in the grout that says, I'm sad too. If an explanation would help, he would write me one. I know it. But maybe an explanation would only start an argument between us, and I don't want to argue with God. I want to lay in a hammock with him and trace the veins in his arms. I remind myself that I'm praying to the God who let the Israelites stay lost for decades. They begged to arrive in the promised land, but instead he let them wander, answering prayers they didn't pray. For 40 years, their shoes didn't wear out. Fire lit their path each night. Each morning, he sent them mercy bread from heaven. And I look hard for the answers to the prayers that I didn't pray. I look for the mercy bread that he promised to bake fresh for me every morning. The Israelites called it manna, which means, what is it? That's the same question I'm asking again and again. There's mercy here somewhere. But what is it? What is it? What is it? I see mercy in the dusty sunlight that outlines the trees, in my mother's crooked hands, in the blanket my friends left for me, in the harmony of the wind chimes. It's not the mercy that I asked for, but it is mercy nonetheless. And I learn a new prayer. Thank you. It's a prayer I don't mean yet, but I will repeat until I do. Call me cursed, call me lost, call me scorned, but that's not all. Call me chosen, blessed, sought after. Call me the one who God whispers his secrets to. I'm the one whose belly is filled with loaves of mercy that were hidden from me. Even on days when I'm not so sick, sometimes I go lay on the mat in the afternoon light to listen for him. I know it sounds crazy, and I can't really explain it. But God is in there, even now. I have heard it said that some people can't see God because they won't look low enough. And it's true. Look lower. God is on the bathroom floor. Jane died on February 19th of this year at the age of 31. And for me, it's a reminder. It's a reminder that grief isn't something that's bad for us. It can be something good for us. Because it doesn't always end the way we hoped it would or want it to. But sometimes just in that process, there is healing. And healing doesn't always look like we think it's going to look. So we're going to turn to a story of Jesus where I think it sort of coalesces and lines up with this story from Jane. Background is Jesus and the boys are out. They've left this area. They get news that one of Jesus' good friends is sick. In fact, the idea that he's getting the message says that he's probably really sick. And so Jesus says, that's great. And he waits a few days. And the boys all think, hey, okay, Jesus is waiting, so it must not be so bad. Then they get word that, then Jesus says, hey, we're going to go because we need to go see him. And they're like, well, I thought everything's going to be fine. And Jesus says, well, he's sleeping. And they're like, that's good because you get better when you sleep. And he's like, no, I mean, he's sleeping, like he's dead in sleep. He's gone, right? To which they're all like, oh, no. And there's this whole thing. You got to go read it later. But Jesus comes back. He runs into this guy's two sisters. First one is one named Martha. And she just unloads her grief on Jesus. And it's raw, just like Jane had written. Her basic message is, Jesus, you let us down. If you'd been here, this would not have happened, and you weren't here, and this happened. And now it's too late. And then, they have a discussion, and then her sister starts to come out, and she basically says the exact same thing, just shorter to Jesus, that if you'd been here, this wouldn't have happened, and you weren't, and it did. And there's this whole scene of people who are just heartbroken because not just that this guy named Lazarus had died, but especially his sisters are heartbroken because they didn't think he should have died. Because they had told Jesus about him, and they knew Jesus loved them. And in spite of all that, that didn't make any difference at that moment. So we pick it up in John chapter 11. It's where John, as he's describing the scene, as he sees it unfold, and they talk about it later, that Mary, after Jesus says, sees what's going on. Here's from Mary, this whole statement. He sees Mary just weeping, and he sees the Jews, and that's not a derogatory term. It's just the people that are around her. They've come out with her, and they're also weeping. Everybody's just weeping, and they're just in this heartfelt weeping. And you know how it is when you're around people that are weeping. It is a brutal situation. You can't do anything but be moved, and you don't know what to do. You can't fix it in the moment. And John simply says that he was upset, that he was disturbed in his spirit, and that he was deeply troubled. That what Jesus saw around him also was happening within him. Because he knows what Mary and Martha have said is true, which may be the reason why he didn't come. Because, he's going to bring this guy back to life, and there's a whole other kind of bigger story. But that isn't changing the fact of the pain, the anguish, and the questions that are coming from that pain and anguish at that moment that are happening. And so Jesus asked, where's he at? Where have you buried him? To which they say, come on, come see, come here, Lord, and see. And then there's these two-word sentence, and people make a big deal. It's the shortest, verse in the Bible, and the reality is verses were something that happened thousands of years after it was written, so that's not a big deal. But it captures just this really short, powerful statement that simply says that Jesus wept. And isn't that Jesus gets a tear in his eye, right? Not that he kind of gets caught up in the moment for just a moment. It says he wept. If you look at the language there, it's full on. Jesus breaks down. And here's the thing I don't want us to miss. The reality of what would be didn't diminish what was. Jesus knows he's going to bring him back to life. But that doesn't stop him from entering fully into the grief of the moment, because even Jesus is experiencing a loss. Even though he knows he's going to not just can, but will fix this loss, even Jesus experiences that loss and experiences on a level like we do of just being overcome by it all. And it reminds us again of the power of this thing we call grief, and the power both to do stuff to us that we're not sure what's going on. And it reminds us of power for something else, and that is that simply that grief scares us. It scares us because we feel out of control, we feel vulnerable, we feel ashamed, right? And there's one other thing, which maybe is the scariest of all. Because if you've ever been in big grief, you know that it's one of those weird times when you feel numb, and at the same time, you feel everything. And oftentimes we kind of think those are opposites. Either feeling numb, and so I don't feel anything, or I feel too much. And here's my question for all of us. What if that's what grief is for? What if it really is to help us feel? Even when that feeling doesn't feel so good, maybe it's just this idea of feeling. Feeling not just other people's pain, but even our own pain, our sense of loss. And here's the story as Jesus stands there weeping, as they say, he's over here, and they begin to kind of move that way, and Jesus just, I imagine, just sort of stops and just bawls, right? Just is overcome. And John says that the people that have been around Mary, the Jews, they said, as they saw this, see how much he loved him. I mean, it was clear by Jesus' emotion that not only did he cared about Lazarus, that he loved him. That this guy was important to him. But some of them said, if Jesus opened the eyes of a blind man, why couldn't he keep Lazarus from dying? Which is our question, right? Because it's a good question. Because he could have. And he didn't. Which is our question, right? When we face grief, especially the loss of something so large. Why? Why, if he can, why doesn't he? And how is it our question? It's one of the reasons we don't like emotions. Because emotions cause us to ask questions that are really uncomfortable. And something I want us all just to kind of process, maybe if we see this a little bit of time today, is simply, what if that's okay? Some of you grew up in homes that it was never okay to question too much. Didn't want to ask too many questions because we maybe didn't have the answer, and so we don't want to ask those questions because that will do something to your faith. But maybe that's not the thing that God's afraid of. Maybe God made you and me to experience this idea of grief so it will more fully be what we are as humans. See, grief is a process that everyone does differently, which is part of the frustrating thing about it, by the way. Because we want to know what to expect, how it's going to work, how do we get through it, and the reality is everybody gets through it differently. Which is hard because we're like, you ought to be doing it this way, you ought to be getting out, you've been doing this too much, and that may or may not be true. But not only do everybody process, the grief's a process and everyone does it differently, but they do it in their own time and in their own way. Which again is a thing that kind of makes us go, oh. Because honestly, I wish I had 5 easy steps. Or better, one easy step, because that'd be much better, right? To get through grief, right? I'm going to leave you with one final question, and we're going to pick it up next week here. And it's a what if question. What if just because we're not good at it doesn't mean it's not good for us? Something to think about.
Moms.
Moms, where would we be without them?
We just wanted to take a moment and say thank you to all of the mothers,
Those who gave birth to us.
Those who have nurtured us.
those who serve as guides and counselors in our lives,
Without you, life would not be the same.
So for those who've given birth or adopted,
those who hope someday to give birth or adopt.
Those who haven't, but still fill that role.
we have a gift for you in the lobby as you leave today. Happy
Happy
Mother's
Mother's
Day.
Hey, everybody. Hey, for those of you that are mothers, whether you've given birth or you've adopted somebody, whether it's actual adoption or you just sort of serve as a mother for somebody, we have some gifts out in the lobby for you today. So if you're hoping to be a mother someday, you just practice that process of being a mother, or even if you're just a woman, we want to give you something today to thank you for that. Because where would we be without our mothers? And the answer is nowhere. That's right. We wouldn't be here, right? So that's important. So, hey, have a great day. Hope you come back next week. We'll do a little better on the grief. Today was just about getting our ideas and getting us sort of shaken up so that we can move on to the next process, all right? Have a great day, folks. Take care. Oh, by the way, if you want somebody to pray with you, there'll be some folks up here to pray. If you'd like to have that opportunity, just come forward. Thank you.